Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Go ahead and get started here. If you got questions, go ahead and post them. It's going to be below the video if you're on a smaller screen or to the right of the video for a larger screen. All right. So let's see what we got here. So we'll start here with Mark H. So Mark H says, can you speak on the relationship between the sternum and the hips at the compression line with driver and how it differs from irons? I think I'm struggling with inconsistent driver because I'm keeping my chest too far behind the ball. Well, there really isn't going to be much of a difference as far as like how the chest and are moving in relationship to the chest. You might be a little bit more angled away with a driver because of how we're trying to hit the ball. So really the main differences between an iron and a driver are, with the irons, the ball is in the middle of our stance roughly, a little bit forward to the middle, and we're trying to hit down and through that ball, right? So our body alignments are going to be a little bit different, right? So it just kind of show you like this would be a good impact position or like a tour level impact position with an iron, right? And then with a driver, it's not going to really, my body alignments really aren't going to be that much different. I'm going to be a little bit wider typically with my stance. So I'm going to be a little bit more angled away, and I'm going to be slightly more open because the ball being more forward gives me a little bit more time to open up. But really, it's not going to be that much different. So typically, my chest is going to be rotated open more than my hips are at impact. Typically, my chest is almost pointing out toward the target, when we look at the better tour players. So if you're coming into contact and you're coming in like this with the driver, yeah, that can definitely be an issue. You're probably bumping your hips out too much is most likely what's going on, and not rotating your body, right? So if we're coming in and we're rotating versus bumping out, that's a big difference. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing what exactly your issues are, but that's what I'd be looking at, right? So I'd be thinking about, okay, what are my ball flight contact issues? And then looking at things in your swing that could be causing that instead of, it's almost like you're fishing a little bit for things. You're looking at things, oh, well, I'm behind the ball a little bit, maybe that's a problem. But if you want to really take care of the issues, you got to look at, okay, well, what are my ball flight contact issues? And then look at what's going on in your swing to cause those things. Right? That's what I'd be looking at. So, so like I said, it's not really that much difference. More about where the ball is being hit. The impact positions with either one are going to be very similar. The driver's just going to be a little bit more angled away versus an iron because you're hitting down and through the ball versus up on the ball. All right, so Tom P says, in the shallowing fix, should I tuck my right trail elbow in prior to pulling the elbows down? Or is that considered part of the same motion? I feel it is two moves. Is that the move? So talking about what the move is just getting the club on plane in the face square as soon as possible. That's what the move is, right? So club on plane and face square as soon as possible in the downswing. That's what the move is. That's what the best players in the world do. Typically, the faster you are at getting the club on plane and getting that club face square, the more consistent generally you're going to be. A lot of poor golfers will have the club off plane too far. Usually it's too far steep, and then the face is open, and it's just so much that has to happen in such a short, small amount of time that makes it very difficult to kind of square things up. So everything gets dependent on, you can hit good shots doing that, right? But it's just harder because everything's more dependent on timing. So as far as should you be tucking in your elbow as you're coming down, yes, absolutely. We should be coming down and tucking that elbow. If my elbow does this, so think about what's the opposite of tucking, right? The opposite of tucking is the elbow flaring out, right? So if I do that, well, what happens to the club? That steepens the club, right? And that's going to cause the issues that I was talking about. So yeah, we want to be tucking in that elbow. It's possible to get the club shallowing out with the elbow kind of being behind. It's just, you just don't see it very often. You got to have some pretty flexible wrists to do that, right? Because if you look here, look at the wrist position that I've got to be in to have that club coming down correctly. Most people, when they get this kind of going out, that club's going to go out with it, right? So ideally, we would have kind of the elbows kind of leading, right? And then I'm releasing it from there. So Joseph R says, I'm also going through the shallowing fix. Is it correct to say that upon impact with the ball, that both wrists still be in the turned position that de-lofts the club and closes the face? Is it correct to say that upon impact with the ball, that both wrists will still be in the turned position that de-lofts the club, closes the face? So I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but basically the conditions that our wrists are going to be in at impact, as far as, you know, the bends and the turns of our wrists, that's all going to depend on your starting grip, right? So if you have a weak grip, meaning that your thumbs are kind of going straight down, you know, the logo on the shaft here, right? My thumbs are on top of the shaft, right? The emblem of my glove would be pointing more toward the target in this situation. So this would be a weak grip. So if I have a weak grip at impact, if I want to have good compression and shaft lean and square the face, I'm going to need to be in a position that's about like this, right? So you can see here, I have a very bowed lead wrist, and I have extended back trail wrist quite a bit. Now, the stronger my grip is, the less strong and bowing and extension of the trail wrist that I need, right? So if I have a very strong grip, meaning my hands are going to be more like this on the grip, right? Now when I come to impact, now you can see my lead wrist. It may actually look cupped. It's flat. If you look at it from this angle, you can see that it's flat. But you can see that my trail wrist isn't as bent back either. It's still bent back a little bit, but it's not as bent back. But you can see I can have a strong grip, square face, and shaft lean there. All right, so a lot of it depends on, you know, what your grip is. Do you have a strong or weak grip or neutral? And that's going to determine the impact position of the wrist angles that you need to have at impact to have shaft lean and square face. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so now Keith Els asks if I'm seeing center club face hits on the face of my driver and the ball still goes very low into the ground, about 20 feet out. What rise that most likely indicate? I think maybe what does that most likely indicate? Does that mean I'm hitting down into the ball and de-lofting the club? Yeah. So basically, I think you're asking what, you know, if you're hitting it in the center of the face, then what's causing the ball not to get up in the air? So it could be a couple things. If you're hitting it in the center of the face, right? So there's, you know, you're not hitting it off the bottom of the club, low part, you know, low strikes on the face. Then it could be that you're de-lofting it too much, right? So if I de-loft it, you know, the ball's not going to get up in the air as much. That could be it. You could be, as you also mentioned, you could be hitting down on it too much. A lot of times those two go together, like hitting down on it and de-lofting. Those typically both go together. So yeah, that could be what's going on there. It could also be a lack of speed, right? So if I don't transfer enough energy to the golf ball, it's not going to stay up in the air. It's going to want to come out of the air, right? So imagine this. Imagine I was launching the ball on this launch angle, right? Of the angle of the shaft going up. But if I hit it only to a certain speed to where it can travel, you know, it can keep climbing up in the air, and then it runs out of energy and then starts to fall out of the sky. This is the max height, right? Now, if I hit it with more energy, then it's going to keep climbing up in the air, and then the max height is going to be a lot higher, right? So that could be what's going on as well. So what I would recommend doing is look on video. You're probably going to want to look face on. You'll want to look both face on and down the line, but face on. So that's this angle here. You know, if this was videoing me and I was hitting a shot, that would be this angle. This is down the line. So I would check a couple things. One, I would check your position at impact, right? look and see, okay, are my hands way out in front of the ball? Typically with the driver, you're not going to see a ton of shaft lean, but it's possible that you could be going on, that could be going on. But generally, when we look at tour players, that shaft's going to be vertical to just, or the hands are slightly in front of it, like a few degrees, somewhere in that area. It's typically not going to be way in front like this. If you're at impact and your impact positions like this with the driver, you're delofting it too much. Too much of a good thing, right? Forward shaft lean is good, but we don't want too much of it with the driver. We want to be hitting up on it so that we can hit high, launch it high and get low spin, right? So that could be going on. I would also look and see, kind of look at how the club is coming down. Are you clearly seeing the club kind of work up into the ball? Is it coming in level? Or are you clearly seeing, kind of a chopping down into the ball? That can definitely make it go low. And from the down the line, what you'd want to look at is, are you coming down steep? If you come down steep and over the top, right, that's going to be a downward motion down into the golf ball typically. So those would be the things I'd be looking at. And then based on that, I would try to make a correction, right? So if let's say that's too much shaft lean, I would try to feel like you're standing taller and you're releasing that club sooner, right? You're adding loft. Basically try to feel like you're flipping it, like you're really releasing it to give it a little bit more. And that's only if you're clearly seeing too much shaft lean and impact. I would also check your ball position, because if your driver ball position is really too far back, then you can be getting too much shaft lean, right? And then you'd want to move it forward, and then that would just fix the issue of just having the ball position more forward, right? If you're clearly like chopping down into the ball, right, then I would try to, make sure that the ball is forward, make sure the ball is teed up. I would try to have a sensation that you're hitting up on it, make sure you're staying behind it, right? That your body is not sliding in front of it and hitting down on it. Make sure you're staying behind it and hitting. Try to imagine you're driving a nail up into the ball with the driver. That's what I try to feel like. Now, if you see that you're coming down steep, right, this club's coming way over the top, then what I would do is I would, try to work through the 20-minute shallowing fix, maybe with the driver, and get that club shallowing out. So those will all be some things that you can look at. Like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing for sure what you need to do, but that'd be something I'd be looking at. All right, let's keep going. So that was Keith L. So JMH says, according to my PRGR swing speed device, I'm now hitting 125 to 141 mile per hour with my driver. Is this possible? Prior to yesterday, the fastest it ever recorded was 101. I changed my swing yesterday by loosening the grip at the top of the backswing and trying to get the whip that Clay describes through impact. So most likely not. I mean, you're not typically going to go from 100 to 125. Like, you got to think like the long drive guys, they're swinging like in the 140s. So those are like the guys that swing the fastest in the world. So you're probably not going from 101 to the fastest swing speed players in the world. What's likely going on is you may have pushed a button to make it to where it's displaying the ball speed. That may be the ball speed. Typically, the ball speed is going to be higher, or should be, than the club head speed with the driver. It could also be that it's reading the ball speed. Sometimes they get errors. All of these devices, even the really expensive ones like TrackMan, they all have errors. None of them are absolutely perfect. It never have misreads or anything like that. So my guess is that you're probably just getting a misread. It's reading the ball speed. One thing I like about the PRGR is that when it's off, it's very obvious that it's off. And I'm guessing this is one of those situations. So typically when you look at it and you see the ball speed and the club head speed are pretty close together, right? They're, maybe it said that your club head speed was 125 and said that your ball speed was 126 or 127, or it's the same, right? In that situation, it picked up the ball speed and thought it was the club. So it's just a misread. So yeah, I'd venture to say it's not. I would make sure that you have it situated correctly. You're putting in a club length behind the ball, directly behind the ball, and make sure that all of that's good to go. So that way it reads most correctly, but most likely that's an error and you didn't go to 101 to 140. All right. So Brandon A says, I've seen lag shot golf being advertised on web in recent months. Do you have a view on this club? Does it live up to the charms made, um, or the various claims made? I honestly, I've used some whippy clubs. I don't know if I've used a lag shot, but there was one that came out. Oh, G Force, I think it was called. It seems like it's the same thing. Um, and honestly, I just don't know. I just don't know what it helps you do. To be honest, I don't know what swinging a whippy club does for you. It may be the one thing I could say that it may do for you is it may help you to kind of feel the flow of the club because it's like whipping, right? You're going to feel like the change in direction of the club more easily. I could see that helping you, but it says that it helps you fix a slice. I've seen that saying that because when the shaft's lagging behind you, right? When it's lagging behind, that's opening the face. Well, then you got to do something more to close the face. Well, what most people are going to do to close the face is they're going to early release the club. So I don't know how it's going to help you to get rid of your slice to make you just early release the club more. Um, so I don't know. I haven't really tested it enough to really have a full view on it. But it's not one of those that I look at and I say, oh yeah, that's going to help a lot of people very, very quickly. Um, if you're looking for a training aid that is absolutely going to help you to get better, I don't know how much the lag shot is, but a divot board, I would highly recommend a divot board. Something like this, way before I would recommend a lag shot because I know for a fact pretty much any golfer is going to benefit from having one of these. So a divot board, a PRGR, somebody mentioned earlier, PRGR. I mean, if you're looking to gain some club head speed and you need some feedback to help you, it's tough to beat, right? So PRGR would be one thing that I would definitely recommend. Trying to think of other training aids that I like that I know really help people. Impact Snap would be another one that I know that can help a lot of golfers. Not every golfer. I mean, if you're already getting shaft lean and using the wrist correctly, then maybe you wouldn't benefit from something like that. But if you're wanting to get a lag shot, then I would venture to say that you're probably not. So yeah, it's interesting, the Whippy Club, but I honestly, I don't know for sure that it really helps that much, to be honest. Or the other thing you could do is save your money and get a lesson. Spend your money on getting a lesson, because that's really if you can have somebody like myself or any of the other top speed golf instructors look at your swing and see specifically, okay, well here are the issues, this is what you need to do, then that's what I'd recommend doing. I don't think the lag shot is going to fix your swing. I just don't know. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I just don't see exactly what it does for sure, to be honest. All right, so let's keep going. So MJ Rista asks, in regards to G171, hit the ball in the turf flat ball training aid review. If it's difficult for you, Clay, to know precisely where you're hitting the ball in relationship to the ground, then it will be exponentially difficult for someone that does not have your extraordinary skill set. Don't you agree? Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what. In fact, I might be training myself to chunk behind the ball. I practice raising my club above the ball as Jack Nicklaus in order to have a takeaway that sets up in a more vertical angle of attack. This aid may train me otherwise, I fear. Yes or no? So all the flat ball is doing, or what the flat ball can do as a training aid, is it helps you to develop your to get to where you can be highly skilled and understand where the ground is, right, in relationship to your golf ball. So that's really what you're trying to do with the flat ball. So in order to hit the flat ball, in order for it to be like flushed, right, you've got to hit a very precise place, right. In order to train that, you would actually want to train hitting it in different ways. So I'd actually train hitting behind the flat ball, flushing the flat ball, hitting the top of the flat ball, missing the flat ball, and hitting the ground in front of the flat ball, right? That varying those things up really helps you to train and understand where the ground is in relation to the ball. So I'm not sure I understand your question. I mean, I agree that amateur players are not going to have, or typically not going to have as good of awareness of the ground in relationship to the ball than a pro. I would definitely agree with that typically. And then I don't understand what you're saying about Jack Nicklaus and what you're trying to do there. It's not, I don't, the flat ball isn't, or the flat ball training aid. I don't see how it trains you to do anything bad. It's, so I'm not sure I understand the question, but maybe ask it in a different way. So Ralph says, hello Q. Lately I'm having trouble hitting my 3-wood. No problem with wedges to hybrid and driver. It seems I'm hitting pushes or toe shots in relation to driving ball position. Where should the ball position be for the 3-wood? Thanks, Q. So if you're hitting a 3-wood off of a tee and you want to kind of launch it high, like you would with a driver, high launch low, when you want to hit your 3-wood the furthest, you would tee it pretty close to where you would tee your driver. Maybe slightly, not quite as far forward, but pretty close, right? Because you're trying to hit get the club to work up into the ball just a little bit, but you can't tee it as high as a driver because it's got a much shallower face on it, right? So if you do, you're raising the chance that you might sky it and swing under it or something like that. So I wouldn't want to tee it up really, really high. Just tee it up a little, elevated a little bit to give you a little bit of space to hit up on it. So it's going to be more forward in your stance, but not quite as far forward as the driver. Just maybe like a ball back or two from where the driver would be. Now, if you're hitting a 3-wood off of the ground, then then the ball position is not going to be very far forward at all. So when you're hitting the ball off the ground, you have to make ball first contact, right? So you have to make a descending blow into the ball. So because of that, we can't put the ball way forward because that's going to lead to hitting it low on the face, topping it, chunking it, things like that. We need the club to be bottoming out in front of the ball. So you'd want to play it in a very similar position that you would play like your 7-iron, your 6-iron, maybe your hybrids, right? You'd want to play it in a very similar position to any other club you'd want to be hitting off the ground. As far as having trouble hitting it, as far as toe strikes, that will definitely your pushes are probably coming from toe strikes. So basically, what I would just try to do is try to hit the ball off the heel. Set up to it the way that you normally would. Just change your intent to hitting it off the heel to get those strikes more in the center of the face. More than likely, that will take care of the pushes in the off center strikes, because that will most likely get it in the center of the face and then straighten out your ball flight. So that's what I'd be looking at doing. All right, we got 30 minutes or so left. We got some more questions. Keep them coming. In the meantime, I'll just be doing some other stuff I got to do. All right. So got a question here from Andrew K. So Andrew K says, hi Q, on the range, when I hit a ball with a one-handed swing, my lead arm, I see much improved lag and forward shaft lean at impact on video. I then add my trail hand to my next swing, and I return to having less lag and a slight flip at impact. Oops. I have tried to create a progression where I would add my trail hand with my grip so light I'm almost not holding the club, but I still can't seem to replicate the lag forward shaft results I had with one hand. Do you have thoughts or a drill I can use to build upon the great results I get by doing a lead arm only swing? Um, so that's a good question. So basically, what's likely happening. It's hard to say without actually seeing what's going on. What's likely happening is your one hand only swing is not very powerful. It's probably just it's probably pretty slow, and because it's hard to do. If you kind of bring it up here and you just go like that, it's probably pretty slow. It's also probably shorter. Typically, when you go one hand only, you're not going to bring it way up here, right? You're probably just going to go to about right here and then swing through, right? So, what I would look at, what I'd really try to do is break down, look at your one arm only swing, and try to break down from the ankles to the to the tips of your fingers what the differences are, and then try to mimic those things in your swing. So for example, if you're taking if you're just kind of taking a short swing, then try to get shaftly and try to mimic that same thing in a shorter swing, right? If it's really slow, then go really slow and see if you can get it really slow, and then try to build up the speed from there. So that's most likely what's going on there. Is you're probably swinging a lot slower and shorter, and it's a lot easier to get shaftly when you do that. And then when you add the trail hand, you want to go fast and you want to hit the ball harder, and then you get that early release and things like that. So I would try to get to that position with the hand on there, going nice and slow in the short swing, and then build it up from there. And then look on video and just kind of see the differences going all the way up, where the differences are, and then just try to do that. If you see, so let's say that you see the club shallowing out with your one hand only swing. Well, then I'd make sure that you're trying to get the club shallowing out, trying to get that laying down. So that way, because if you're steep, that can make you early release. Right? Because if I'm going down steep like this, well, then I can stand up. Now the club's shallow, but I have to early release now. Right? So that could be what's going on when you have your trail hand on there. So I just kind of be looking at studying the differences, but most likely the short answer is you probably just need to go shorter and slower to mimic more of your one hand swing, and then build up the speed from there. So Tom P says, apologies if you already addressed this from earlier, just logged in the shallowing fix. Should I tuck my right elbow in prior to pulling the elbows down, or is that considered? Yeah, I talked about that earlier. Yeah, just the short answer is yes, you should be tucking in your elbow. But if you ever ask a question and you miss the answer to your question, you can always watch the archived office hours. So you can get the archived office hours by going to the from the home page, or you can probably do it from this page too. If you click the office hours tab and then click office hours highlights, if you scroll down to the bottom of the office hours highlights page, you'll see the archived office hours there, and you can select it for that. Obviously, this won't be on there yet. It'll be on there after office hours, but if you ever miss a question and you want to see it, you can go there. So if you want to see my whole answer, I'm not going to go over it, again with it, since we already talked about it. But if you want to see the whole answer, just go to the archived office hours after we're done. So Rolf says, thanks, Q. That helps. I appreciate it. No problem. All right, so let's go to some earlier. So let's see here. Receiving notice. All right, so JY says, hi, Q. I watched the never hook again and found that I need to add spine tilt and focus on keeping my head behind the ball in order to manage my hook, especially with my driver. I feel, however, as if I'm tilting way back in order to make this happen. It is uncomfortable, and I'm wondering if it is uncomfortable because it is new to me or I am tilting too much as I am in order to mask another problem. Any thoughts or ideas? Well, I just get the video out and see if you are. It could be that you are tilting way too much, and it could be that it's just a new position and you're not comfortable with it because it's new and it's different, right? So it could be either one of those. So I just get out the camera. You know, if you're kind of going into contact, excuse me, and your hips are really bumped out and you're like this, then it's uncomfortable because it's not the position you want to be in, right? We want to be like this, right? So if you're looking at video and you see a good compression line, your body's angled away, it's not because it's uncomfortable because you're just not, maybe you're usually in a different position, right? You're coming over the top, your spine angle's leaning toward the target, right? And things like that. So it shouldn't hurt, obviously. Well, if it's uncomfortable because it's just like a different kind of position, then yeah, I would just get more reps in with it. All right, excuse me. Let's keep going here. See if we got any new questions. All right, no new questions. Like I said, we got about 30 minutes or so left, so keep the questions coming. So Bernie says, where do I plant my arms or elbows to start the downswing? So it's basically going to be moving down and in toward your body, right? So if I'm at the top here, I want my elbow to be kind of working, kind of in toward my body. I don't really want it going behind me, right? Because that's going to lead to either getting stuck or coming over the top, right? I want it to be kind of working. You almost want to feel like it's working toward your belly button. That's what I'd almost feel like, no matter where you are in the swing, whether you have a big flaring elbow or your elbow's already kind of tucked, that elbow is going to kind of move toward your belly button as you're coming down. That's going to move. If you're to draw a straight line from your elbow to your belly button, it would kind of track on that line typically, pretty close to that. So Riley R says, is there a way I can post my video for analysis? I've been following the videos, but I cannot seem to stop hooking the golf ball. So unfortunately, we don't have a way for you to post videos. That's not something that we do in the office hours. We can talk about how we can help you to fix your hook. We can talk about that here in a second. But if you want an instructor to take a look at your swing and be able to give you feedback, I recommend signing up for the unlimited swing reviews. That's really that's the service that we offer if you want to get your swing looked at. So if you're interested in that, you can click the get a review link at the top of the page, and then that will take you to the swing review page. And if an instructor has some spots open, we all have a limited number of students that we can work with, so that way we can sleep. If it was unlimited, we would probably never get to sleep. So anyway, yeah, just go in there. If you see a spot available, grab it. If you don't, no worries. Just join the waiting list. So that way, whenever spots become available, we can send you an email, and then you can sign up at that time. As far as fixing your hook, when you're hooking the ball, what's happening is it's one of two things or both of these things. The most likely thing is that your club face is just too close to your club path. So what that means is that the direction the club face is pointing at impact is too close to the direction your club head is moving. So if you want to think about it in this sense, it's almost like you're swinging way to the right, but the club face is pointed way to the left. That'd be the face being too close. Now, you can swing to the left and also hook it, right? As long as the face is excessively closed to the path of your club, you will hit a hook, right? So that's more than likely what's happening. So you need to get the face lined up with your path somehow. So ways to open up the face would be releasing the club later, right? So getting more shaft lean, releasing the club later, that opens up the club face. Maybe weakening the grip. Your grip could be too strong, right? And if your grip is too strong, right, then it can end up closing the club face too much, right? Those would be some things that I'd be looking at. Either one of those things. I would venture to say if you're early releasing, I'd be trying to get that club to release more out front to get rid of your hook. So those would be kind of the things I'd be looking at. The other thing that can cause the ball to hook, and it could also be a combination of the face being closed, is a toe strike. If you hit the ball with the toe, it will tend to draw more than it normally would. Have some right to left curvature more than it normally would. So that could be what's going on as well. So that's what I'd be looking at. We have a Never Hook Again course. If you want to check that out, some great drills on helping you to get the club face and path more lined up with each other. So if you want to check that out, click the instruction tab, and then, not the instruction tab, the house icon at the top of the page. That will take you to the home page. And if you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses there, and select the Never Hook Again course. All right, let's see if there's some new questions. All right, got a couple new ones in here. So Richard B says, should a conscious effort be made to transfer weight back and through, or let the bodies in rotation get what it gets? Get what it gets. Weight back and through, or let the body's rotation get what it gets. So there should be a weight transfer back and through, right? And in order to rotate properly, you need to be, it's hard to rotate properly or rotate very much if you're not transferring your weight. Because I have to shift, apply pressure, and then that pressure allows me to push into the ground and to rotate, right? And then I'm going to shift again, apply pressure, and then so imagine this: if I shift to my trail side and then I don't really shift my weight to my lead side, it's hard to rotate, right? I want to shift into my lead side, push it into the ground, and then rotate my body. So you definitely need a weight shift to rotate the body. Now, as far as should it be a conscious effort? Well, that really depends on whether you're doing it naturally or not, right? So I get questions like this all the time. Am I consciously doing this? Am I actively doing that? And what it comes down to is if you're not doing it naturally, right, and you want to do it, you're going to have to be conscious of it, right? If you're doing it naturally already, then there's no conscious effort that needs to be made. You're already doing it unconsciously, right? So, but if you want it to change, you're going to have to consciously do something else. And you're going to have to work through the 4 stages of learning, which the first stage is unconscious incompetence. So you could say that's where, you're completely unaware of it, right? So it's like you don't even know what a weight transfer is or what a weight shift. You're just playing golf. You have no idea what weight shift or that you should even be doing it, right? So that's the first stage. The second stage is called conscious incompetence. So this is where now you're aware of it, what a weight shift is, but you're not really able to do it yet. You're not sure how to do it, but you know what it is and that you should be doing it, right? And then you move into the third stage, which is called conscious competence. So this is where you are doing it, you're able to do it, but you have to be consciously thinking about it in order to do it. If you don't consciously think about it, then you'll do what you did before, right? And then you do that with enough repetition to where you move into what's called unconscious competence. This is where you're able to do it and you don't even have to think about it. It's unconscious. It's just automatic, right? So if you think about it, you've worked through these stages with about any skill you've ever learned to do, right? If you learn to play a musical instrument, you work through these stages. If you've learned how to type properly, right? Keyboarding class, you've worked through the stages of learning, right? If you've learned to grip a golf club, right? There's lots of small skills that you had to learn riding a bike, right? You have the training wheels, and then, at one time you couldn't ride a bike without falling over, right? And now, if you've learned how to ride a bike, right, you just hop on and you don't even have to think about it. You just start pedaling and it just happens, right? You don't fall over. It's unconscious, right? So that's essentially what you have to work through. So yes, we need a shift to the trail side and to the lead side to rotate the body. It's going to be hard to rotate if you're not. And then If you're not doing that, then you're going to need to be conscious of it until eventually you do it automatically. But if you're already doing it automatically, then it is there is no conscious effort. It's just unconscious. All right, so got a question here from DJR5. Says, I know that I'm supposed to clear my hips on the downswing. Now my belt buckle pointed at the target in the finish. That said, I have a very hard time making myself do that, especially with the driver. What are some very specific actions or swing thoughts to make me do this properly thing? So you would have to break down what the root cause as to why you're not able to do it. So some common things that I see is basically we're not allowing that trail foot to come off the ground. So basically this trail foot, if I don't let this heel kind of come off the ground as I'm coming into impact, right, in the downswing, if I don't let my trail heel start to come off the ground, then it's going to act as an anchor for my hips, and it's not going to allow me to rotate, right? So if I'm like this, I'm not bringing my heel off the ground. That's as much as I'm going to be able to rotate, and then there's the rest of my swing, right? Whereas if I'm coming in here, I have my heel kind of loosened up off the ground, and then I can kind of keep going, right? So you can see how my heels, I got to get all the way up on my toes to be able to rotate my hips. So make sure that you're kind of unlocking that trail foot and letting it come all the way around, right? So that'd be one. Excuse me. Another is shifting your weight. If you're hanging back on your back foot, right, basically you're anchoring on your back foot, right, then it's going to be hard to open up. You need to make sure that you're shifting your weight into your lead side, so that way you can push into the ground and rotate all the way through. So the step drill is really the best drill to work on to make sure you're getting the weight shift. So that's one thing I'd be looking at. We have the step drill. It's in our 20-minute distance fix. If you want to go check that out, click the instruction tab and then click the 20-minute distance fix. And it's called the sumo step drill, and it's in the week 1 drills. I believe it's the second drill in the week 1 drill. So you go check that out. There'll be a great drill to help you do the step drill and come all the way down around into a full finish. But I'd be focusing on basically getting to the lead side, making sure you get into the lead side and making sure you're unlocking that foot to let it come all the way around and do a full finish. All right, so keep the questions coming. Let's see here. We got some other ones here up at the top. All right, so Gary P says, with my driver, I am attempting to shallow out my downswing. I have been told to image a chair to my right where I go over the chair, going back, and come inside the chair when coming down. The problem is going over the top causes me to close my face. Is there a correction or modification you would recommend? Well, let me read that again. The problem is going over the top causes me to close my face. Well, I just work on getting the hands. We want the face to be closed. If you're someone who's coming down steep, you need to get, if you're coming over the top and steep, you need to be getting the club face closed first. That's the number one thing to getting the club shallowing out, is getting the club face closed. The reason for that is if I don't have the club face closed, I have no incentive to shallow out the club. If my face is open and I shallow it, I'm going to hit the ball starting to the right and slicing more to the right. Right? You don't have any incentive to do that, right? We need to get the club face closed so that way when I shallow it, the ball can draw, right? Because if I get the club face closed and I swing over the top, I'm going to have the other problem. I'm going to hit left and left. So I need to get the club face closed so that way I'm incentivized to swing from the inside. So I wouldn't be trying to get your club face closed. I would say that's the good thing that's happening, and then you just need to work on getting the club shallow out. We have a whole. I'm not familiar with the chair drill that you're talking about. Swinging over sounds like maybe you're doing something kind of like this, where you in the backswing you're kind of swing over the chair and then underneath the chair, which is fine. I'm not sure I'm a big fan. The more I kind of work on things and help people, I'm not sure I like this big. Now, for some people, it can definitely be good. But for most people, this feeling doesn't really work that good. The only people that works really well for are the people that are doing the opposite, right? The people that are going way inside and then way over the top. But that's not really what most people are doing. Most people, and the reason why that'd be helpful for that person, because this is the exact opposite, right? But if you're just someone who's maybe bringing the club a little bit from the inside, and then clearly the momentum of swinging from the inside on the backswing isn't causing you to come over the top, because a lot of times it's not. A lot of times people bring the club inside, and there's really no momentum making them loop it out over the top. It's really just other things that are going on there making them come over the top, like the face is open or things like that. So yeah, what I would recommend doing is it's not that important, like how the club is coming back, as far as basically you just want to bring it back in whatever way allows you to bring it down the best, right? Because that's really what matters, how this club works down. So there's lots of ways to bring it back. You can look on the PGA Tour and you're going to see a lot of different takeaways. You're going to see outside the hands, way inside the hands, and in line with the hands, and everything in between. You're going to see all of that. Generally, you're going to see more closer to in line with the hands. That's generally what you're going to see from most players. But that doesn't mean that that's where you have to be. You know, you just need to bring it back in a place that allows you to swing the club from the inside. And I think for a lot of people, that's not going way out here like this, over the chair and under the chair. So I wouldn't take that as, okay, this drill, may not be the best fit for you. So what I'd recommend doing to work on getting the club shallowed out is working through our 20-minute shallowing fix. Get the club, because it's just a program that works you through everything you need to do to get the club shallowing out. So we need to get the face closed, then we need to get the club shallowing out, and then we need to tone it down. So to get the 20-minute shallowing fix course, click the instruction tab, and then the 20-minute shallowing fix course. All right, let's see if there's any new questions. All right, got a couple. So DJR5 says, thank you, no problem. So David H says, do you recommend choking down on the club for chip shots? I do. It's really personal preference, but I feel like it gives me a little bit more feel, a little bit more control of the club. But like I said, it's personal preference. If it's not comfortable for you, or you're more comfortable with using the full length of the club, that's 100% fine too. But I find for myself, it gives me a little bit more control. So that's why I like to do it. But yeah, you can do it either way. It's fine. All right. So Richard B says, to add to my question, when I make conscious weight transfers, weight transfer shifts, I seem to sway, whereas stay centered, I don't feel the pressure you talk about as much. So there is going to be some shift in sway in the swing, right? If you look at a tour player, typically if you take, Rory McIlroy, right, and we draw two lines on the outside of his hips, right, and as soon as he starts his swing, right, he's going to start to go into that trail line just a little bit. So he's going to move a little bit into that trail line, right? And then as he starts bringing the club back, he's going to already be back to where he was at the start. And then as he's getting up to the club, you're going to see more separation between his hip and that line, right? And then as he starts the downswing, you're going to continue to see that separation as you come down, right? So we definitely don't want to be going like this, right? Because that's not what we want to do, because that's just shifting and sliding, right? That's just laterally moving. We want to shift, pivot, shift, pivot. So as soon as you're getting that pressure into the ground, you should be pushing into the ground to push your hips back and around, not just sliding the pressure this way and sliding the pressure that way. So if you're just doing this, right, then that's definitely not what we want to do. We want to shift, right? There is a little bit of a sway there, right? I want to shift, turn, and then I want to, shift. You could call it swaying, right? I'm shifting and then I'm turning. That's what I want to do, right? So the idea that our hips are staying perfectly centered in a barrel, right? That's definitely not what's happening. Look at any tour player, right? That's not what's happening. There aren't really any tour players that do that. The guys that have the most powerful athletic swings, like a Rory McIlroy, they're shifting their body around. Their hips are moving around. Now, it's not excessive, right? I would call excessive lateral movement that which means the hips moving this way and this way, right? Excessive, I would call that sliding and swaying, right? But if we're just shifting to apply pressure, then turning our body, then shifting to apply pressure and turning our body, that's not swaying. That's something that's necessary to get to get the good rotation and power. So that's what I'd be trying to do, is more like that. But I wouldn't be trying to keep the hips perfectly centered, because that's not really what powerful, athletic players do. Not that you can't play golf doing that. You certainly can. It's just that it's just not going to be the most powerful and athletic thing. You may tend to hit, the ground behind the ball, right? Because if I don't have a lateral shift, it's hard to get my body forward enough to get the hands up front. If I'm doing this, I better have some really good shaft lean if I'm going to be making good ground contact. If I'm keeping my hips centered and I early release, I'm going to be hitting a lot of thin shots, a lot of chunks, tops, that sort of thing. I'm also going to be adding loft when I do happen to hit it solid. So David H says, thanks. No problem, David. All right. So we got a little less than 10 minutes left. If we got some more questions, I'll scroll up, see if there's another one. Looks like we actually answered everything. Okay. So John G says, when putting, do you use a stroke motion or pop motion, or a combination of both? Thanks. Really, you could do either or, right? There's lots of different styles to putting, right? You can have kind of a long and slow stroke, or you can have kind of a more of a poppy kind of stroke, right? So, like Brant Snedeker has more of a pop stroke, and obviously it works really well for him. He's a great putter. But if you look at somebody, like a Tiger, he doesn't have a poppy stroke. It's kind of just back and through, more of a sweeping stroke. So there's really not one right way to do it. You got to find what works best for you. So yeah, I would just do whatever you're most comfortable with. Either one is 100% fine. Because when it comes down to putting, you need to hit the ball on the right line, hit the ball with the right speed. You have to read the green correctly, and then you have to have a pretty good mental space. So there's basically 4 things that I attribute to good putting. So like I said, number 1, hitting the ball on your intended line. So seeing the line and then hitting the ball on that intended line that's skill number 1. Skill number 2 is the speed, controlling the speed, how far the ball goes, right? And then number 3 would be reading the green. So your ability to kind of see the breaks on the green and to see the lines that you need to hit them on, right? So, finding the dead straight putt and then understanding, okay, well, if the dead straight putt is right here and my ball's over there, I know that ball, if this is a dead straight uphill putt, then I know that ball is going to break left, right? If it's to the right of me, I know it's going to break to the left. If the straight putt's right here, my ball's over there to my right. If it's an uphill dead straight putt, I know that ball is going to break to the left, right? And the further, if the dead straight putt and it's 90 degrees that way, it's going to have the most break, right? If it's just a little bit over here, right? If it's just like 2 feet to my right, it's not going to have as much break as the putt up there. So understanding that, in reading the greens, that's number 1. And then, that's the 3rd skill. And then the last skill is like mental. So when I say mental, I say, putting is confidence, right? So if we're putting and we're, for lack of a better term, yippy, right? Or we're, we're not putting with confidence, We're not seeing the line, right? We're seeing the picture of the ball going into the hole, right? We're not seeing that. We don't have the confidence, right? You're not going to make putts, right? So basically having the mental part of it down, taking a confident stroke and kind of visualizing things, right? That's also a big part of it. So everything that you do to improve your putting game needs to be along the lines of those four things, right? So when you're looking at, is it a pop stroke motion or combination of both, or a stroke motion, it's really about, well, what one of those helps you hit the ball on the right line with the right speed, right? That doesn't have anything really to do. It could have a little bit to do with having a confident stroke, but which one can you do confidently, right? So that's that would be going into the last piece. But more importantly, does which stroke get you on the right line with the right speed, right? That's really what you're looking at. So like I said, there's lots of different putting ways to putt. You can look on tour, you can turn on the Open Championship. I don't know if it's still on right now, but you can turn it on tomorrow for sure, and you'll see all kinds of different putting grips, putting length of everything. It's going to be a lot of different things. So that's one area where there's just there's a lot of variance when you're looking at the best players, just because there's a lot of ways you can do it. All right, let's keep going here. All right, so Penny Dog says, when I was bowing the wrist, or when I was bowing the left wrist, that also caused my right arm to turn down, causing the left ball flight. When I kept my right arm from turning over, it all worked. Cool. Yeah. So if you go like this and then you go like that, you're gonna hit it way left, right? So if you go like this and then you swing from the inside and you shallow it, you hit it straight. You get the hands in front, you hit it straight. So sounds like you're on the right track. Not sure if you had a question or not, but that sounds about right. All right. It's pretty much 4:00 right now, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.